Hi everyone, I'm Mark from Novation and I'm here today in conjunction with Music Matter to give you a brief overview of the brand new SL MKIII. Okay, so let's take a physical overview of the SL MKIII 49. So as we can see, we've got the 49 version here. We do have both 49 and 61 key available. So if we take a little physical look around the unit, we can see at the very heart of it, we've got our 16-step sequencer. And just above this, we've got our 5 fantastic looking screens on the SL, and just above this we have our 8 endless encoders, and to the right of this we have our pads, which are generally used for mute and solos on the sequencer parts, but also when we're in InControl or software mode, these can be like mute, solos, record arms, etc, etc. To the right of this we have our transport control, so when we're in standalone mode as we are now, we can use this to obviously stop, play and record on the sequencer. Then we have the 8 physical faders, all of which these controls can actually be mapped and to send CC messages and set up on the templates within the component software, which can be used to control all of your external hardware and make your own mappings or templates for the SL itself. So let's take a deeper look into the sequencer. As we say, the sequencer itself is very much borrowed from the Circuit family of products. So those people that have used Circuit or Circuit Monostation will be really at home with the sequencer that we have on the SL 49 and 61 MKIII. So as we said before, we've got 8 independent or completely independent sequencers on the SL MKIII. And within this we have, steps, patterns, different sort of views that we can use to create different rhythmic patterns using the 16-step sequencer, but then we can go into the patterns mode and actually chain these together. So up to 8 patterns themselves can be chained together, so that's 16 steps times 8, that's 128 steps per track or per part, and don't forget we have 8 individual tracks. So we have a multitude of different connection types available to us, including dual MIDI output and dual CV and gate output. And really that depends on what you're connecting the SL to. Obviously it works very well in standalone, but as a sound source, and obviously in this product demonstration, we're going to be using it with Ableton Live. And really where we kind of set our routing or our hardware or software templates up is in the template screen. So if we hold Shift and Templates, we can actually select what we want to assign to the independent different tracks or sequences with the SL. And of course, when you receive your unit, you'll obviously receive a load of stock templates for some of the go-to hardware at the moment, such as the Octatrack or the Sub 37, Big Sky, and of course there's a lot of Novation devices, Circuit, Peak, etc. But as we're using it with Ableton Live, we're just going to set that up as a straight-up MIDI channel, and here we can kind of configure the routing for the track. So, for example, we are using it with Ableton Live, so we want the USB MIDI on. We don't want to be sending out of the MIDI DIN because we're not connecting any hardware in this session, and we want to turn off the CV and gate because we don't have any CV enabled synths or modular gear connected, and that's just routed via MIDI channel 1. So we've quickly set up our routing template for tracks 1, 2, 3 and 4 with Ableton Live. So that's just sending MIDI into a channel into Ableton Live. So we are using it as a sound source. And on track 1 here we have a drum rack available to us here. So let's get some ideas down and let's lay down a beat. So if we move into our steps view, we can quickly see that we have our playhead running through. And again, if you're used to our circuit sequencer or our circuit monostation sequencer, you should again be really at home with this type of view. So we have a drum rack available to us. We're just going to find a kick drum and lay down a simple sort of 4/4 rhythm. So there's 2 ways of entering notes into the sequencer. We can either play them in live, or one of the things we can do is find the particular note we want to use and then place that into the sequence. So there we have a real kind of simple 4/4 rhythm. And then we might want to add, say, a snare sound over the top, and we want to place that on top of our kick drum. So now we actually have 2 notes available on that particular step, and we can layer up to 8 different sounds per step, which is really, really handy and really useful. So we can place them into the sequence this way, or another way we can do it is perhaps play them in live. So if we find kind of like a hat sound there, and then simply hit record. And obviously, you know, some of those notes are a little bit sloppy, so what the sequence is going to do there is just kind of snap that in time for us. So a real quick and simple, easy way in terms of workflow just to kind of lay your ideas into a track using the sequencer view. So we've seen how quickly we can lay down some drums there. So we're going to move to track 2 and look to lay down a bass line. One of the really good things about the SL is the scales mode. And if we jump into scales, we can see that it is pretty powerful. For example, what we can do is we can change the root note here from, say, C to like F, and we can change the scale type from like a natural minor to many different scale types that we have available. But what we can do is just keep it on a natural minor. And next we want to do is select the actual part or track or sequence that we want the scale mode applied to. So for example, we don't want that to affect our drums, which is track 1, but all of the other parts are sort of melodic parts, so we definitely want to play those in scale. So if we come back out to sequence, we can see that on the keyboard here we have a number of LED lights or backlit keys via LED, and if we just hold shift and select the scales on, we can see that that now completely snaps into scale for us. So we can see that we can now play the bass there in the scale of our choice. And there are different scales modes. For example, we have snap, we have filter, and we have display only. We're going to keep it on snap because, as I said, I'm a pretty lousy keys player, so this is going to help me by, you know, if I hit the wrong note, it's actually going to snap that into scale. So we're just going to hit play on our sequence, and we're going to find a bass line, and we're going to record that in. Now if we just go back to the step sequencer, so we can see how simple and easy it is just to record in a bass line there. Now, one of the things we can do is go to patterns, and we can actually extend this pattern out now beyond 16 steps. And we've seen the pattern view, but if we kind of scroll down through the different lanes and tracks we have available, we can see that we can access track through 1 to 8 in terms of extending the patterns. So we're just going to find track 2, which is kind of yellow pattern lane here, and we're going to extend that out by another bar. So we have now a 32 step sequence. We're going to create a different kind of variation. So we can see there how really easy it is to use the scales modes and the patterns mode there just to create a bass line in the key and the scale of the choice, and also extend that out from a 16-step sequence to a 32-step sequence. But also don't forget we can actually extend that out beyond 32 steps or 16 steps right up to 128 or 8 different patterns chained together. So next we're going to jump to track 3, where we've got like this nice kind of pad or kind of pad sound available to us. And one of the really cool things is we can just, you know, very quickly jump into step mode here and say find a chord. And if we want to, if we like that particular chord, we can place that onto the first step there in our sequence. And what we can see is that we only kind of get that one individual hit on that step. So one of the really good things we can do is jump into the options for this particular sequence, and we can see that we have loads of different things that we can adjust. So we can adjust the velocity per step. We can also adjust the gate. So for example, what I might want to do with this particular step here, or this chord, is extend it out for the entire sequence. So we can do this via the encoder at the top here, and you can see I'm just kind of scrolling through the steps here and just increasing that up to the full 16 steps. So we'll get like a kind of held down chord over this entire sequence. So really quick and easy just to jump into the options there, change and adjust the gate length and also the velocity and also the pattern, because we have different variations of patterns as well. Of course, it won't sound very good on the pad that we have there, but we can, if we want to, we can adjust the sync rate of this particular sequence. We can change the direction from forward to backward to a ping pong. or completely random where it will pick different notes within that sequence. But we'll just keep it forward and straightforward for this time. And we can also adjust the start and end point of the sequence itself, so where we want that to start and end. So again, just to remember, we have 8 completely different sequences. So we could have one doing a completely different direction and starting in a different position, and then that entirely different on a completely independent sequence. So now we're going to look at the arpeggiator on the SL. I'm going to jump to track 4, where we kind of have this nice kind of really nice kind of plucky sound. And we have the ARP, which we can kind of switch on by holding shift and then ARP on, but we can also dive into the ARP settings as well. But first, what we can do is just latch the note, and we're just going to go back to sequence, and we're just going to find a particular note. So that sounds really, really good. What we can do, like I say, is just jump into ARP, and we can, if we so wish, we can actually take various different steps out of the ARP here, and we can create our own kind of ARP rhythm essentially on this particular channel. There are various different settings within the ARP page as well. For example, we can change the octaves. We can also change the sync rate. And we can also change the gate and also the type that we want. So at the moment we're going up, but we could also go down. We can change it to up and down. Or we can have it completely random as well. So lots of different customization within the particular ARP settings itself. So we can see how quickly and easy it is just to get 3 or 4 different sequences together going on the SL and getting some ideas down. And of course, we're using Ableton Live as a sound source, and we're using the plugins within Ableton Live. So one of the really good features that we can do with the SL is dive into InControl. So InControl is basically now your software control mode. And there's a really, really good script that's been written for Ableton Live. But of course, there are scripts for Logic, and also introduces Huey as well. So we get control over Cubase and other DAWs. So in Control, we get full control over our Ableton Live software. So for example, if I now dive into the tracks that I was using, we can see that we can view the plugins and now have access to all of the parameter controls on those plugins. So for example, we can change the frequency cutoff or the resonance, and we can dive down and get a lot of different parameter controls. So before, you basically with a lot of different controllers only had 8 parameters or go-to parameters. Well, with the SL, we actually have banks and banks. In fact, we have full visibility over all of the parameter controls for that particular device in Ableton Live. So it's really, really easy just to get hands-on with your DAW without even looking at your laptop or desktop screen. So we have parameter control. Those that are familiar with our Launchpad range will recognize that we now have a grid of Launchpads, so we can do a lot of clip launching and scene launching on the right-hand side here. And we can also access our mutes for the individual channels and solos as well. And if we page down, we also have access to our monitor and record arm buttons as well. So we can record arm something, capture something on the fly, into our Ableton Live set. And below this we have our faders, which are track fader control. So we have 8 in total. We can also track across and change the track focus of the particular channel that we're looking at. And also we can, pan across and look at the master fader and also the return tracks as well. So the rotary encoders allow us to have full parameter control over devices, but we can also access our sends as well. Full transport control over our DAW. And of course, as we said, we can change the track focus on the left-hand side here as well. So if we jump back into sequencer mode, one of the other really powerful performance things about SL is the ability to record automation. So we are obviously, yes, using Ableton as a sound source, but for example, if I had like my sub 37 connected, one of the things I can do is actually record in automation. So if I hit play here and then record, we may have, for example, control over the cutoff on the sub 37. So I could record and store some automation movements as well. So you can see you just simply hit record, move the encoder, and that will be controlling our cutoff filter on our sub 37. And of course, this is all mappable via the templates that we have built into SL. But if you have hardware that's not included in these templates that we give you, of course, you can use the component software, and you can quite easily dive into the back of the manual in your synthesizer, into the back pages, get the CC messages for the various parameter controls, and map this yourself and send it all to the SL for complete control. So there we can see how quick and easy it is to use automation with the SL. But of course, one of the other really good features about it is the ability to split the keyboard into zones. So if I hold Shift and turn zones on, we can split the keyboard into the individual sequences that we have available. So for example, I could be playing my drums down here, I could be playing the bass in the middle, my pad, and my plucky kind of lead sound that I have there on track 4. Within the keyboard split into zones. So this is really powerful in terms of performance, but also from an ideas creation tool, because we can simply hit record, play our drums and then bass, and sequence all from this zones view here, and all of the recorded parts will then be recorded into their individual tracks or sequences. So that's been a real brief overview of the brand new SL MKIII from Novation. For more information, stock availability and pricing, please check the link below the video. Thanks for watching.